You know, to this day, it still kind of blows my mind that the Vancouver Canucks have Quinn Hughes. If you remember, back in 2017-2018, the first full year I started dedicating myself to making videos, I was so high on Quinn Hughes that I had him as the best skater in the 2018 draft. I had him 4th overall on my board, and even though I knew this guy probably wouldn't go that high, I was still a big believer in the way the game was shifting, and as a result, how players like Hughes and Boquist would transition in these times. Hughes was my favorite prospect by far of the 2018 draft, so the fact that he was not a top 5 pick in 2018 and he slipped all the way to 7 for Vancouver to pick him up, you could kind of see the reaction video we made and the happiness in my voice when I was talking about that so. But today's video is another one of these topics where we look back at 2018 and we talk about why exactly things even went this way. I know we've discussed this several times on the channel, especially since 2018 was 4 freaking years ago, but with each passing year, I think it gets a little bit worse every time, and so that's why we're talking about it here in 2022, after a season where Quinn Hughes went out there and set the franchise record for defenseman points and defenseman assists in a single Canucks season. This video is going over the draft pick that allowed Quinn Hughes to drop. This is the entire reason Vancouver even has this guy, and in fact, you could say there are several picks at play here, which we'll definitely get into, but the one that I wanted to focus on the most was the Arizona Coyotes and their 5th overall selection. Because in the 2018 draft, they went out there and selected a name that I was super surprised to see go in that spot. Out of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, the Arizona Coyotes selected Barrett Hayden. Now, in retrospect, I probably should not have been all too surprised, considering the fact that I did make a video talking about Barrett Hayden before the draft, asking if the guy could go in the top 7. The reason we made that video was because Craig Button actually had Hayton in his personal top 7 list, which I thought was absolutely bonkers. Okay, Barrett Hayden is good. I mean, he's a two-way center, he's got a whole bunch of points, but top 7? Come on, Craig. What the heck are you seeing here? And we made a video about that. In fact, you can go in the comments of that video and see some people say, oh, this video aged really well, Lego. He did go top 7. He went 5th overall. But like, if you watch the video, I had my concerns. Sure, I went out there and I praised the heck out of his two-way ability and his character, but I kind of said that his footwork was a bit slow and the maximum output as to what he could be at the NHL is really limited by things like that. I said that he might not even max out past being a third-line center if his skating doesn't improve and if he doesn't take the next step offensively. Sure, there was the benefit of the doubt to give Barrett Hayden because he was playing on a Greyhounds team that had a first line of Gettinger, Morgan Frost, and, who was it, Boris Kachuk. So while his production wasn't the best, it wasn't Andrei Svechnikov level in the slightest, he was a second-line guy who wasn't given all the opportunities. So there were several opportunities to give Barrett Hayden the benefit of the doubt. And what's the thing that we always say when it comes to these drafts? It only takes one. All it takes is one team to go out there and make a pick that they feel is the best pick available, which can change the entire landscape of the picks that follow, especially if that pick is at 5th overall. Now, the other picks that were kind of strange in this range were 3rd overall, Jesperi Kotkaniemi going to the Canadiens, which was half a surprise, half not. Kotkaniemi was seen as the best center in the draft by many people, although his stock as an overall prospect was not necessarily seen in the same range as the Zadinas and the Tkachuks and the Hugheses and all that. It's just Montreal really needed a center at that time, which is why they drafted for need, which wasn't a surprise because we had already seen a whole bunch of speculation saying, hey, they're going to take the Finnish kid, which they did. They passed up on Filip Zadina, who was the projected 3rd overall pick. A lot of people were surprised to see Zadina actually not go 3rd, but things got even crazier when you saw the picks that followed. Brady Tkachuk going 4th was not a surprise. He was also ranked to go in that type of range. Some people had him above Zadina. I believe the Hockey News magazine might have been one of those outlets. But then you had the 5th overall Barrett Hayden, whose Arizona Coyotes chose him over Quinn Hughes and Filip Zadina too. It was really surprising to me to see Barrett be the guy because I was kind of thinking, okay, Oliver Ekman-Larsson is a good left-handed defenseman. You got a spot open on the right side. Maybe an Evan Bouchard, for example, is the guy that you slot in beside OEL long-term. There was also Adam Boqvist. Hey, he's a Swede. Have the two Swedes playing together on your top pairing because Adam Boqvist has some really good offensive potential at the NHL level too. I didn't really think that Quinn Hughes should have been that fit with Arizona because having a 1-2 of Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Quinn Hughes does not really sound like the most projectable thing long term, but hey, guess what? My team now freaking has that pairing. The blanks got filled into my head as I was saying that sentence out loud. I was like, wait, OEL and Hughes? Okay. Moving beyond that, though, while I did think that Hughes was the better prospect, I didn't think that you would be maximizing the output of what you could have had out of this draft if you had OEL, who was a number one guy, and Quinn Hughes, who could have been a number one guy, playing behind OEL. I much rather would have had the Arizona Coyotes drafting a Boucher or a Boqvist because both of those guys projected to being good, solid right-handed guys, which could play alongside of Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Alas, the Arizona Coyotes went with Barrett Hayden, and today, if you take a look at where Hayden is in his NHL development, he is certainly not a Quinn Hughes. He is certainly not even a Filip Zadina who is available there, and who I thought the Coyotes would take for sure because Zadina was not supposed to be available in the 5th overall spot. Barrett Hayden in his most recent season of NHL play had 24 points in 60 games played, which is not bad. It's certainly a respectable number. In fact, he even outproduced Filip Zadina this season too. Zadina had the same amount of points in a much higher amount of games played, but where Filip Zadina was seen as a lethal goal-scoring winger who could have 35-40 goal potential, Barrett Hayden was seen as a center in the mold of a Patrice Bergeron who wouldn't necessarily put up too many points. Heck, maybe in hindsight you could say that Barrett Hayden over Zadina is the correct pick at the moment because of the current point production in 2021-2022, but alas, I do think that Filip Zadina still has another gear to unlock that he has not gotten close to unlocking just yet. And then of course you still have Quinn Hughes, who, as we said at the beginning of the video, went out there and shattered the Vancouver Canucks point records and assist records for all defensemen in franchise history in a regular season, and he is only 22 years old. He had 68 points in 76 games played, 60 assists as well. My goodness, Quinn Hughes is so freaking good that I'm just so happy to see him every time he suits up for the Vancouver Canucks. Like, this player was a ballerina in the NTDP and the University of Michigan system back when he was in his draft year and draft -1. I was such a big fan of Quinn that if you told me you would have taken him at 3rd or 4th overall, I honestly would have had a pretty easy time believing you. You gotta remember, back in this time frame, the projected 1, 2, 3 was Dahlin, Svechnikov, Zadina, and Zadina was seen as a 3rd overall unanimous pick. Kotkaniemi going 3rd wasn't a surprise because everybody knew that Montreal wanted a center, but it wasn't a consensus pick in the slightest. Brady Tkachuk going 4th overall was more of a, okay, the Ottawa Senators kind of need bite, and Filip Zadina doesn't really provide that. He's a lot more of a goal scorer than the physical specimen that Brady Tkachuk could be. But it really was that 5th overall Barrett Hayden pick that threw a monkey wrench in the entire plan for what the draft was supposed to look like. Because Quinn Hughes was drafted out of the University of Michigan Wolverines. He was right in the backyard of the Red Wings and their scouting staff. I remember a lot of Red Wings fans saying, hey, I think we should get Hughes. This guy's a mobile left-handed defenseman, and if he does what he does in the NCAA in the NHL, this guy could be an absolute game changer. In fact, if you try to project things now, let's say the Red Wings hypothetically draft Quinn Hughes in the 6th overall spot in 2018, and then they get Seider next year, Hughes and Seider would have been a pairing for the ages. The mobility, the stability, the defensive responsibility, there's so much to like out of what that pairing could have provided. But the Red Wings said, hey, Filip Zadina is a 3rd overall projected guy. He slipped here to 6. Let's take him, which was not seen as the wrong move at the time. So, yeah, this is me kind of just patting myself on the back. No, not patting myself on the back. Patting Jim Benning on the back, I guess, for making the easy choice and taking Quinn Hughes 7th, even though he was small, even though Brian Burke said on the broadcast, that's a small body, ladies and gentlemen. Because Jim, even in the post-draft interview, was like, yeah, we love Quinn Hughes. We're so excited to have Quinn Hughes. I'm so excited for our fans. We couldn't believe he was available at 7. And you had John Weisbrod, who was there when Quinn Hughes was born because he was friends with Quinn's dad because they were both NHL executives, something like that. Yeah, it's very interesting, the timeline of Quinn Hughes and how he became a Vancouver Canuck, but it always blows my mind every time I think about it, so that's why I wanted to make a video about it here. Ever since he broke the franchise's records, I do think this story bears repeating just one more time. So talk in the comments all your thoughts about Quinn Hughes and how he became a Vancouver Canuck. Let me know your thoughts about Barrett Hayden and how he's been playing for the Arizona Coyotes, and Filip Zadina as well, because he is definitely a major player in this story too. I have a question for you as well. With hindsight fully intact, who do you think should have been picked first amongst Zadina and Hayton? You gotta remember, Hayton spent fewer years in the NHL, and this season he outproduced Filip Zadina. I do think that Zadina has a lot more to give at the NHL level, but he just has not shown that off yet. So, from the standpoint of 2022, who do you think at this moment was the better pick? Barrett Hayton or Filip Zadina? Talk to me in the comments all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.